qualitative researchers make me believe I am too lazy to become a qualitative researcher. Travel library to library to find all this stuff. This is amazing work, and I see the time and effort invested in this main paper. Okay, our next presenter is going to be Dr. Taylor Wynn. Her paper titled "Scare Them." Oh, you're a tape. Oh, you're a tape. Congruity between emotions and message framing promotes advertising engagement and message evaluation. This paper received the second place student paper award from the advertising engagement.
I didn't intend to prepare handout, but this is one of the high density section at AJMC that require handout, and then I was like, why don't I just bring my handout and then you can listen to my presentation and then we can be more effective. So that is, here I am. This paper is actually a follow-up study what I have done on emotions, particularly on anger and fear. So this is also one of the major topics of my dissertation. As some of you might know that I'm an emotion person, so that is one of my areas of research. The literature suggests that even though anger and fear, they are both negative emotions, they share something that is in common. For example, they are both negative in valence, but they are both also high arousal emotions. However, one major thing that they are different is they can trigger different level of control when people experience these two different types of emotions. For example, when you feel angry about something, based on both theories, that the three-factor theory of emotions, also the appraisal tendency framework, what they suggest is when you experience the emotions of anger, that you will feel a sense of certainty. You will be more proactive, that you want to take actions. And also at the same time that you feel you as a person, you have more personal control over the situation. However, when you feel that you're afraid of something, that you know the future is unpredictable, that's why you try to flee away, you try to escape because of some unpredictable danger. Fear is associated with uncertainty, and in this case, the situation is in control. So how does this difference between anger and fear has been discovered in the previous literature? What it suggests is that they will influence different risk perceptions. For example, if you feel like you have more control, for example, the people in anger, when they do gambling, they tend to bid more. They tend to be more optimistic. They tend to want to make some more risk-seeking choices because they feel like I have control over the situation and then I want to gain more over that. Versus when people feel fearful, what they will try to do is they tend to be more optimistic. Because they already don't know what will happen in the future. They're trying to protect themselves. And in this case, they would try to avoid the risk and bid less and try to protect themselves in a certain way. So that is the start point of this particular paper. And when I dig into the literature, I find out that in terms of the message framing literature, there are two frames that is really interesting and have some association with risk-seeking versus risk-averse. So that is why I found out that when the message framing, a message could be framed as emphasize the benefits, the gain frame, versus the cost or the losses, which is the loss frame. When the message emphasizes on gain frame, which is talking about this is what you will gain, this is how beneficial to do a certain kind of things, people tend to be more risk averse because they want to gain that benefits. They are less willing to lose that kind of good things. So they tend to avoid the risk by taking those kind of actions. And the effectiveness of loss frame is emphasizing the causes of the behavior. So in this case, there's nothing that you can lose. People tend to be more risk-seeking in this particular case. So I see there are some connections between the emotions of anger and fear, as well as the gain frame and loss frame. So that's why I was trying to propose what we call a congruency hypothesis. I was trying to match if the message induced the emotion of anger, which people would tend to be more risk-seeking, and at the same time, if the text of the message trying to emphasize a particular loss frame and also induce the risk-seeking behavior. So this message might be more persuasive versus if there is a mismatch. At the same time, if a fear appeal presented in a game frame, both of them would trigger risk-averse choices. So in this case, they might be more persuasive. So I predicted that as the first hypothesis regarding of attitude toward ad. The second hypothesis regarding to behavioral intention, regarding to information seeking, information sharing, as well as the behavior in the recommended message. I will show you in a minute. The next two hypotheses is what I found out in the literature, also suggests that when you process a message in a more congruent way, that you are more likely to engage in the message, that you will process in a more depth. And also the message makes more sense to you, that's why you are more involved in the message. In this way, so I propose advertising engagement, or what we can also call advertising involvement, as a mediator between the two moderators to the outcomes, which is attitude as well as behavior intention. So I conducted an experiment 2 by 2. So I induced the emotions of anger and fear through a message. I use visual to induce anger and fear, and I use text message to frame a message in gain versus loss. I have 140 participants from Amazon and Turk, and then I get 35 in each of the 4 experimental groups. So I want to show you my stimuli a little bit. So what I have done is I choose a list of images, which in the previous literature suggests that might induce the emotion of anger, and another set of visuals induce the emotion of fear, and then I use the text to manipulate that. I have 4 messages, but I want to show you the combination of 2 of them. So this is the anger appeal with the image. I didn't put the text when I do the pre-test there. And then both of the text from the previous literature with the anti-smoking literature suggest that it's a loss frame. And that is the fear appeal with the gain frame. So I got one question from a reviewer at AJMC. He or she asked me is, how can you make sure this is triggering most of the emotions of anger, while those triggering the fear? So I think some of the times that it gets confused, that some of people think this is more like a fearful appeal to certain kind of people. What I have done is I asked them a couple of questions, also in a qualitative way, try to make sure what does these pictures make you feel, and why does that make you feel so. So I think those are more, I can get more extensive responses from that, and that's why I found out that this is more anger related and that is more fear related. Very lucky I got the interactions. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do, so that is one of the things that, but I don't have the interaction on behavioral intention, that is one thing I need to mention. So it's exaggerated as I predicted, loss frame in anger and fear appeal with the gain frame. So I will do that very quickly. And also I found out the moderated mediation, which as I proposed, that the interaction between loss frame, gain frame, as well as the anger and fear emotions, they are mediated by advertising engagement to influence the ad attitude. So you can see that I code the fear as 0 and then I code anger as 1. So you can see there's opposite effect there. So that is why these 2 moderators, they are mediated by engagement through ad attitude. One last wrap up. Yeah, so I believe that overall, as I started with looking into more of the discrete emotions, what I'm trying to look at is go beyond the literature of looking at bipolar valence, not just talking about positive versus negative, because there's so much things when you experience fear and anger. They're very different. So in this particular study, what we confirmed is they do differ in a certain extent in terms of their persuasion effects. And they could be matched with different type of message framing so that we can get a more effective message and persuasion outcomes. And at the end, how we can reach a more positive attitude is through a more engaging message. So I believe that's the conclusion of my project. Thank you.